Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to yet another session organized by the BCI Chennai Chapter on the topic of data protection during COVID-19. At this juncture, I would like to tell you that the views expressed here are just the views of the panelists and not the company or the corporate or the business enterprise that they represent. We have 5 eminent people on the panel, and to kick off the session, I would like them to introduce themselves. I'm starting with Kavita Srinivasulu. Ma'am, just state the organization that you represent. What are your key interests? Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Bala. Thank you for facilitating and having the session. And I represent, or I'm part of GAVS Technologies. We are hosting this session with BCM, and hosting the event. The views and the perceptions or the purviews that we'll be sharing would be from my experience and on the experience that I had in this platform. So I have overall 18 years of experience in and around cybersecurity, data privacy, and business content. Here we have, we are gathering with the leaders in the market and leaders in the industries to discuss and see how well we can learn new things. And there are a lot of innovations and a lot of changes that is happening during the COVID period. So how are we going to face that? And we're going to hear from all our leaders who are gathered here, and looking forward to hear from all of you. Thanks. Over to you, Sanjay.
Sanjay, sir.
Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to this session on a Sunday afternoon. My name is Sanjay Mathur. I am currently working with a company called McIndoe Risk Advisories LLC, based out of Baltimore. I'm a senior consultant there. I'm an ex-Accenture managing director of business continuity and resiliency. Took that session kind of stuff for about multiple years, 10 years plus of that role. Before that, I was with GE. Before that, I was with DuPont. So quite 30 years of experience with different roles and responsibility, more on compliance, finance, as a master black belt and Six Sigma as well. So all of that combined to a large extent, I'm looking forward to a very interesting discussion today during a very troubled times of COVID kind of stuff, because everything is right now disrupted in a supply chain or in any particular form, right? And strongest person who are good are able to survive. So I look forward to an interesting topic today and interesting discussion. Thanks for having me on the call today.
Thank you, Sanjay, sir. Over to Soundarya, ma'am.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Soundarya here. I have a role of 18 years of experience in various industries and started with operations, honestly, without knowing where I'll be heading to. So started with operations, started with medical transcription within operations, and then moved into core banking with First Source. And then worked with a lot of organizations with investment banking as a background, and then slowly I did get the interest to work with business continuity and crisis management, considering my personality, which is being very enthusiastic, looking at how we can resolve problems. I think that's what motivated me to move to crisis management and business continuity. Overall, about 12 years now in the business continuity and crisis management domain. Now I'm working with Wells Fargo in the last 6 months, but extensively have worked on business continuity, resiliency, crisis management, ITDR, and related topics. Infosec is another interesting topic for me. While I did not venture completely to become an SME in it, but then it definitely interests me a lot. I'm sure today's topic is also, in line with that, and definitely did, interest me to be a part of today's session. So looking forward to, good takeaways from this discussion, and thanks all for taking your time out on a Sunday evening to be a part of today's time with us. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Arvi, sir.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So I had a bit of a glitch initially, though I got connected, and after that, I believe I was not able to hear people from the other side. That's fine, good. I think now I'm online. R. Vaidyanathan, shortly RV. I have about 33 years of experience overall in last 2 decades into the BCM. I work for Cognizant right now. Earlier been with different corporates like TCS and HCL. And whatever I little know today with whatever lot of webinars that's happening on this, specifically on COVID, post-COVID, data protection, all those. I think people might have heard a lot of things. And whatever is my perspective, I'm here to share it with you today. And mostly, I want the other people to probably pitch in who are very well experienced than me in terms of handling things operationally. So look forward to a nice session and an interactive session. Back to you, Bala.
Thank you, Arvi sir. Last but not the least, Dr. Ram.
Thank you, Bala. It's an absolute honor to be here on this panel, and I'm very much thankful to Kavita and GAVS team for inviting me over. It's a very interesting topic, as we all know. I'm with Nissan Digital, part of Nissan Motor Corporation. I'm with their cybersecurity GRC team, and I look forward to hearing and also sharing my experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ram. Now, I'm going to ask a series of questions, and I would address the panel members. I would request the panel members to address the same. So we are here after a very considerable experience of the pandemic. The government has recently released a list of 10 states where the pandemic is in upswing. China has declared an emergency, and they have said it's worse than Wuhan. The Delta variant is going at a rate of 146% in certain places in the US, Australia, and it's not showing any signs of coming out of the lockdown. Now, all these are the grim phase. Now, coming to the happy phase, we have far more people vaccinated than what was there during the first wave. Hospitals are seeing lesser instances. Olympics are on. But the question here is, what are your views of the challenges that lie ahead of us? Arvi sir, if you can kickstart.
Okay, so I think there's been a lot of learnings from the COVID, as you would know. Right from people thinking about organization resilience, and a lot of things that has come in. It's just beyond a BCM, as I would think. One is it has helped people to understand what is continuity management. And if I could say, people, servant made and security of my community is talking about it today. But have they understood it rightly in terms of the perspective? So anybody says work from home is now the strategy for BCM, and that's BCM. It's for all that everybody knows. But is it a business continuity risk or a BC risk? This has been a general topic that has been talked about in most of the areas. So looking at that, everybody in the organization got involved into it in terms of managing the resilience at that point in time. And even now we hear whether this is going to be the new normal or are we getting back to office. So there are certain set of parameters that need to be decided. Few organizations have decided that they're going to be on hybrid model beyond whatever that they're looking at, even 2025. But few organizations are still looking at whether to come back, and most of the other industries have started working on and then now deciding back to home and all those. It's a kind of leaving it with a dicey situation, whether to plan back to office or not to office. So with the new news that is coming up, is it a third wave? We don't know, but we need to wait and watch. But nevertheless, this new normal, return to office, all those have also probably brought into a lot of privacy issues, the data privacy. People who never knew about the data privacy, or earlier in the sense that I would be happy to provide some information, whatever is asked for to an extent. But today, everybody is aware about the data privacy, the phishing, and all those that's coming. So the point is, it has helped in a way to create a lot of awareness amongst people, and with the kind of information moving up and down, whether there is complete control, and especially vaccine not being made voluntary or rather mandatory, it has become voluntary, and the kind of variant that we see, whether it's going to be taking care of human infection, how many of them have to be back in office, whether they have to be vaccinated, or it's just that RT-PCR weekly ones. I know few organizations is just asking for a weekly ones RT-PCR just to move the people onto taking vaccination. So all these are something that need to be planned, and it's not just again a BCM or a crisis management or anybody who is involved into do it. It's a collective ownership. That's where we are moving into a kind of a resilience organization where accountability has to lie with all the functions within the organization. I just park here for others to also jump in.
Andrea, ma'am, your views, please.
Yeah, thanks, Bala. I would definitely agree to the points where RV made, because I think looking at the phased approach of how this pandemic started and to where we are today, there's a lot flown, through the waters, right? So we've crossed multiple stages with multiple severities of this crisis. While in phase one, it started off with us not knowing how we're supposed to do things and what we're supposed to do as measures, as protocols. To we are in a stage where right now we have a lot of clarity in terms of what is it that we need to take, or in terms of risk. How much risk can we accept? How much risk can we consume? How much risk can we tolerate or transfer, etc. Right? So I think every wave or every piece of the pandemic has taught us a lot. There's been extensive learning. It's going to be an ongoing learning process, is what I feel. This is, again, like I said, it's my personal view. We've learned a lot through this, 1.5 years of this pandemic. New normals are constantly coming. While, last year when we started off with the pandemic, we all were very fascinated with this new word called new normal. I think every part of the pandemic is showing a new normal to us, right? So I think overcoming privacy issues during this pandemic is going to be a bigger challenge for all of us, because at the end of the day, the shop has to run, the business has to go on. We need people to be working. At the same time, there's a lot to do with trust. There's a lot to do with managing employee expectations, etc. So in my view, I think it's going to be a lot of balancing act between multiple variables that are constantly going to hit us as BCM professionals. That's the starting point from my side, Bala.
Thank you, Sandhya, ma'am. Dr. Ram, your views, please.
Yeah, thanks, Bala. Can you please make me a presenter? I have a few slides to share for better impact.
Anita, ma'am, can you do the needful?
I've given the rights, Dr. Ram.
Yes, Dr. Ram, you've been given the rights.
Okay, awesome. So we all started with this, and just confirm if you can see my screen.
Yes, we are able to share screen.
Okay, you can see my presentation, right?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. So as Soundarya succinctly put earlier, we learned a whole range of vocabulary in the start of the lockdown last year, 2020 March. Very naively, I thought within a month we'll be able to go back to work, and that was just learning. We are learning as we go. It's unprecedented crisis that we are all facing. We are adapting, and we are just learning new things as we face. So a whole range of words we became normal, new normal, and we have to be very careful as we go along. COVID appropriate behavior at a personal level, it is going for a toss. That's what I see. And we have to beat the COVID fatigue. Everyone is fed up with these restrictions and being isolated. Everyone wants to go back to normal lives, right? We are end of the day social people, and we never thought we will have to work in isolation, live in isolation. And of course, the lockdown relaxations are there. That is there for economic reason. Just because shops are open doesn't mean that it is BAU. It is there for a reason for the trading community, business community to survive and thrive. That doesn't mean everything is normal and we can go back to our earlier lives. So that is at a personal level. And again, this is a very popular meme that was circulating. So we have to be extremely thankful that we have a work and we have a home, and everything else is bonus, especially IT. ITS industries or knowledge-based industries have this luxury of having work from anywhere, rather, but not others are not as lucky as us. So this is one key thing. And for businesses also, what was attributed to Jack Ma is very much, relevant even in 2021. And it's just about surviving, keeping ourselves afloat, and not make 2 week plans. At the same time, keeping an eye on how to sustain the business in such challenging times. And one important point that came out, I come from cybersecurity background, so obviously my views will be a little biased towards cybersecurity. So in the start of 2020, when they did, last July, when they did a survey, they found cybersecurity risk not so critical for organizational growth. It was not a big risk. It was not perceived as a big risk. But when they did the same survey in the Q1 of this year, it has topped the charts. So that is pretty much. And we all know how the pandemic times have made, a dramatic rise in the cybersecurity and the cybercrime scenario. So that is continuing. So all these things portends to one thing. We'll have to sustain, we have to evolve, we have to learn, and also protect our data and infrastructure, and ultimately ensure that the business survives and thrives even during a pandemic. I think that's all I had to say for this. Thanks.
Thank you, Doctor. Mr. Sanjay, over to you, sir.
Thanks, Bala. Very difficult to follow what Ram just made a presentation. I don't have any fancy presentation. I and Ram go back long time back from a data security council perspective, where we were setting up DSEI in Bangalore many years back. So my work, my process to a large extent is about, the first wave was all about containment. And as Saundarya mentioned, there was a lot of unknowns to a large factor, right? And we learned a lot from how to manage different scenarios, situations, circumstances. The biggest driver at that time, how do I get myself vaccinated? That was the first topic with anybody. Have you got your first dose? Have you got your vaccination? All that stuff. Are you 45? Are you 45 plus, or what? 18 and 45? That was the discussion going on with everybody, kind of stuff. The second wave, as it came, kind of stuff, was much more deadlier and catastrophic, and that led to a lot of fear to a large extent. And I'm sure a lot of people had personal casualties as well. The way I see with vaccination and everything coming into play, the impact may be lesser, but we have to understand how do we coexist with COVID, because this COVID is not going anywhere, right? It will evolve, it will come into different forms, but that is how I see going forward as coexistence as such. What I know of as of now, currently with the Delta version, is that's far more severe. US is going through a lot of anxiety currently. People who have got vaccinated are getting impacted. The severity is lesser, but it is still impacting the stuff. Europe is going through the same. So from the experts, what we hear to a large extent is the impact is higher. Vaccination, despite vaccination, we lost a lot of doctors as well. Health structures are being tested, and it's being tested across different countries. From a country perspective, if you see it, even the best of healthcare facilities like US and other places were tested, right? Government in places like Indonesia, Philippines, Brazil, Myanmar, India, they were rarely tested out, right, as far as their infrastructure was concerned. So good, we are investing, but this was not the desired state to be. But going forward, we will have a far better infrastructure of having oxygens and medical facilities and stuff. From an organization perspective, if I look at it, that companies which were leaner, fitter, agile, adaptive, I'm sure you've heard of these names, responsive to people, process, technology, changing with the dynamics, were far better able to survive this, right? And they had the infrastructure to get people take desktop, laptop home and work. And as Ram alluded to it, if you have a home and you have work, it's a blessing in disguise, right? Because that was one of the biggest reasons people were adaptability within that, people who were hardcore managers who were saying it will never work from home, right? Data privacy, GDPR, you name it, they were like strongly against. Clients were like, I will not allow anybody work from home, right? Environment is the most secure. They had to relook those boundaries and structures, right? They had to, there was no other choice because they had to get the work done. And that's the reason the people who were adaptive had to compromise on certain things. I'll use that word compromise later as well, kind of stuff about where they had to look at stuff because work had to be done. Supply chains were tested, right? Digital, online, connected, end-to-end user experience outcomes, all of them were the way of the world to a large extent. And on the humanity side of it, or the people side of it, people who were more patient, had humility and respect for people, had the work getting done. People who got scared, were more worried, were much more difficult to manage, kind of stuff. So those were the kind of, I just wanted to give you a feel of what's the experts, what the countries went through, what organizations went through, what people have gone through, because some people don't have the luxury of like what you and I have as a single room and closed environment and being able to do. There were a lot of people, kids who were five guys staying in one particular place, or maybe in a native place where the best of infrastructure is not there. They were tested. Big data was tested. The people who had the myth that people will not be able to work and transfer data from one place to the other at that bandwidth were proven wrong, right? It was choppy, it was flappy, but data moved, right? The security and everything came along with it later on. Somewhere it was not so great. Some places it had to be made enabled, kind of stuff. So we'll keep on evolving that topic, but as we go through it, but it's all about CIA. It's confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data, right? Stay with that basically, as far as data is concerned. And if you make that work, as Ram said, you have work, you have home, and you have CIA, or as far as the confidentiality, integrity of data work can happen, right? So over to you, Bala.
Thank you. Kavita ma'am, your views, please.
Sure. Thanks, Bala. So from my view, if you take, if you see from the past, there are two things that we learn. So one is positive and one is the other way around. So the positive thing is, so far till the code has raised, including the clients and including our organization expected, we have to work from office, we have to work inside a secured or restricted area where the data is protected, and only from there we can work. And there is trust is always the CIA definitely played a major role, and we have to evolve only around that. And there was no confidence, or we didn't never tested, afraid of the impact to the business. We never tested on a real time, will we be able to survive, or will we be able to recover the data. But this COVID has taught a very positive lesson. So from wherever that we work from, we are going to excel, and we are going to bring the robust output that we are doing. As for the current survey, if you see, compared to what we were delivering prior to the COVID, now we are delivering much more better than that, and the productivity has increased high. But when we are saying that, we have to see the other side also, and as the productivity, as the technology grows, there is always a risk and vulnerabilities which is accommodating and evolving, right? So when we're talking about that, there is a lot of if we think from two angles. One is from cybersecurity as well as data protection standpoint. It has definitely the level of vulnerabilities have increased invariably across all the industries. Specifically, pandemic being on the on the higher end now currently. Healthcare industry has been impacted, at a big time. As a lot of data, especially the personal data, is humongously stored, and it is being protected, or it is being maintained at the healthcare industry. That they are really struggling to come out of the business. They are struggling to sustain the business, especially the US. As Sanjay rightly called out, US is struggling with respect to the ransomware attacks that has invariably increased, and day to day we are seeing, even recently, Irish healthcare industry, that they have definitely impacted at a big time, where the chemotherapies for the patients were did manually based on the doctor whoever attended the patients. They were manually based on the memory card they had, they were doing the treatment, which is highly vulnerable, and which is being a very big threat to the industries. So having said this, how are we going to come out of this, and how are we going to survive, and what is the future calling out is nothing but we'll have to ensure, which we would be discussing in detail in the coming time. But non-compliance is going to be a big threat, which is, every organization is, struggling, and every organization is planning towards being resilient and to protect the data both of the enterprise as well as the customers network. But when we see, how we can adapt and change, definitely that's going to be a big challenge that we are seeing in the future, and we will be discussing furthermore. Over to you, Bala.
Thanks, Kavita ma'am. Thanks for bringing in the word of organization resilience, which is, ma'am, my second question is targeted towards.
Yes,
OR,
please.
or organization resilience, is a new buzzword across the whole world. We see a resurgence of, we see a lot of reading materials, presentations that all these consulting organizations come out with. And they loosely define OR as the ability of an organization to anticipate, prepare, to respond and adapt to incremental changes and sudden disruptions in their activities. And OR is generally defined as two types of activities: progressive and reactive. Progressive activities are based around using the resilience to gain business benefits, and protective activities are based around protecting the business resources. Now we'll start with Sanjay sir. Sir, what do you think? What, in your view, should be the two key activities that the enterprise should focus on, and why?
Okay, so it is not a new topic as organizational risk. It had been being talked about or discussed about even as a standard to a large extent. Some couple of years back, I remember BSI presenting a organization chart, organizational resiliency perspective. And companies and organizations which invested, tested, and prepared for such kind of scenarios were far better off going on. Nobody predicted that this kind of a large scale impact would happen across all locations. But the genesis of this, of China getting a virus and that spreading across, was always on the cards, and we were due for one, right? If you've been in this field for a long period of time, the predictability had said that we are looking for a pandemic scenario for some time, but nobody in the wildest of dream had ever thought about what COVID did, frankly speaking, across all countries, locations, and people kind of stuff. And if you look at it, the connected organizations and the leadership specifically, so I would just say the C-suite, the boards who are actively engaged in managing these situations are far better off as an organization. The tone has to be from the top. You have to walk the talk for sure, and set the standard, put measurable targets of how we look at organization, what is being done, what are the areas that are dependencies, what are the dependencies mitigated, and all that stuff are factored in. And the KPI, KRI is defined because difficult to do. I know somehow we are managing to be able to get productivity, as Kavita was alluding to, but look at the number of hours to get that productivity up, right? Everybody is working from home. Earlier, the time spent on commute, back in specifically if you're in Bangalore, like Silkport crossing was a big disaster for people to travel, right? And likewise, go down to Chennai as well, travel was a ordeal. That has gone because everybody's now online, right? People are being asked to work crazy hours to a large extent, right? Now that may have will have a detrimental impact over a point of time because of ergonomics and others, but as of now, that's not an area for focus currently. It is about organization resilience to be able to cater to and meet its commitments to their end clients or customers, or be profitable and remain in business kind of stuff. People who have organizations that have been doing very, very well, like the works of the Amazons, the others as well, even Accenture for that. I'm just following that the share price was like $200, now $300 kind of stuff. It's just gone up out of the out of like $100 is in a very short period of time means a lot of money kind of stuff, right? So there are KPI, KRIs defined. Senior leadership is looking at it. Targets are defined. They report it. And as you, Bala, mentioned about it, it is about we always were taught kappa, right? Corrective action, predictive, and the predictive action of action, right? But I think so. It's the reverse that needs to be done. It needs to be done as I'll call a Hindi word called pakka or PDCA, right? Right, which is do your protective first, then the corrective. Because if you do a better job, you correct it. If you patch it well, you will not get into corrective mode, right? So it's very, very important to do the PDCA and sustain yourself, then to go the other way around. Because then it's a very patchy job or a wrong job. So I'll just here look forward to other people's views as well. But that's where the PDCA has helped lots of organizations be in that business.
So at this point, the participants, just a reminder, you can ask your questions to the panelists in the chat box, and the panelists will answer those questions. Now, moving on to Soundarya ma'am, your views. Do you agree with Sanjay sir? Or you don't agree with Sanjay sir? Your views, please.
I think it's a very relative word to say agree, disagree, because we are sharing knowledge. So I would always say, views are always welcome, whether, we'd agree or disagree, right? So I'd like to quote a small, life story on this topic of organizational resilience, right? This was way long back, even before these words were coined, and concepts of business continuity, crisis management and all came into existence. I think resilience per se is again a very personal human word. And I remember in one of the sessions RV did a very personal live example which kind of moved all of us to think all these concepts are now coming up, right? But otherwise it's inbuilt, it's a human nature, it's human for somebody to build resilience within them when it's really needed. So this is way back. I mean, this is almost out of 60s and 70s story that I have heard from my grandparents. So my grandfather was the Tahsildar in one of the villages in Tamil Nadu, very deep inside Tamil Nadu. So those days they had to wait for buses to travel for hours, right? If today, you desire to travel, you just go to your basement, pick your vehicle and move, right? Days buses were something mode of transport, rather, let me put it that way, not just buses, right? Mode of transport was extremely difficult, very less mode of transport that we had those days. So my grandfather had to walk at least about close to 10 to 15 kilometers to go ahead and submit just the register that he was maintaining, right, to the government officials. So he kept trying this walking regularly and not waiting for the buses, right? So every day was a difficult day because every day he's walking 10-15 kilometers a day, and trying to figure out whether the bus will come or not. You'll keep waiting, and he kept waiting. And then he decided, let me start the walk. Let me not just think too much about it. Let me start the walk. So he used to walk this 10 to 15 kilometers for months, just to make sure that he doesn't end on that one day where he waited for so many hours and the bus did not come. But every single day he walked, he would see the bus passing him. So he was very sure that actually the bus came on time. But then he practiced walking so much that he realized that even if I walk, I am convinced that I'll reach the destination at the time that I have to reach, and not just wait for the bus every single day. So he prepared himself to reach that day, one day where the bus won't come on time and he would not reach office. And the reason why I'm even talking about so many days of practice is because those days, I think, work ethics, discipline, extremely more than what we are talking about today, right? Missing a day's work, going 1 minute late to work is like complete embarrassment. and it's a shame of fact. So, those days, people respected their jobs a lot more than people do today. I mean, no offenses to anybody here, but then that's how it was. I mean, that's the story that I've heard from my family members at least. So I'm relating to the story just to say that, organizational resilience is nothing but practice. Keep practicing it, whether the day comes for you to execute it or not. It's very important to continuously keep doing it. Make it a daily act, make it a daily, rhythm for yourself so that you don't have to see a sorry face one of those days. That's the takeaway from my side, Bala.
I think to summarize what you just said, practice makes perfect is what I think
Yeah.
you meant. Yes. Okay.
Absolutely. No test exercises were there those days, right?
Yes, right. Over to you, Dr. Ram. Your views, please.
Sure. So very nicely put, Saundarya, with with the personal anecdote. So the ability to adapt to the evolving situation is the key for any business. So we all seen how easily IT companies, ITES companies, change. For all that big talk, everyone talked about digital transformation. What really accelerated was the pandemic, right? The cloud adoption has gone up exponentially, right? And every business, as much as possible, they adapted to survive and thrive. You must see the spike in e-commerce sector. Of course, it's completely online. Look at schools and colleges. Kids are doing, attending their classes on out, and we never thought a situation would rise like that, where kids also need to have these laptops and tabs where they can connect, and it is okay despite all the constraints. They are also adapted and doing well. We never thought of cloud kitchen, the word cloud and kitchen, okay, two different words. That is happening and thriving, very well thriving industry today. Cyber criminals, all the chain snatchers, because of the lockdown, they lost opportunities. Their digital cousins, they became very active in the online world. You must have seen the spike in the security incidents, especially ransomware. It's a very organized industry. It is not just a bunch of guys doing it. It's done by all these advanced persistent threat gangs, right? APT hackers, and they're all organized with nation state backing. Different countries back their own bunch of hackers. So all these things are happening, and companies also started evolving their business model and see how best they can survive and thrive in this scenario. And as Sanjay already said, COVID is not going to go away. It keeps mutating. We are talking about Delta Plus. There was a meme that was talking about Delta Pro, Delta Max Pro. We don't never know what's going to evolve like. Maybe it'll over a period of time it'll become like a common flu, and we are nowhere close to getting 100% vaccination in the near future. So everything, from individuals to businesses, customers, the entire ecosystem is adapting as much as possible. So the key thing here is the ability to adapt to the evolving situation, and more from organizational resiliency perspective. What I would say is, if you look at the acceleration in digital transformation of businesses, it's outstripping the investments that we make in all organizational resiliency aspects, right? Business continuity and disaster recovery, it has been packaged as cyber resilience in the last few years. That has taken huge prominence in the last 1.5 years, at many industry sectors. That's a big thing, and I hope the momentum will sustain. And we never thought about pandemic planning in a big way. Way back in 2008, 9, I remember when SARS was it was a pandemic somewhere in Southeast Asia, and it was never truly a global pandemic as we speak, right? So pandemic planning was only very localized, and it was very popular in the Southeast Asian business sector, not in India or in other places. But this corona is actually a game changer. Now all companies would definitely have a plan how to handle this kind of situations. Yeah, over to you, Bala.
Thank you, Ram sir. Kavita ma'am.
Thank you, Bala. So from my side, more than looking at the digital transformation and the evolving changes and adaptability, one thing that is from the past till date that is missing and that really needs to strengthen the platform is on the ownership, on who takes the ownership. There is always, lot of, leadership challenges that we have on working on a solo type. So business continuity would be working on in a separate platform, and the information security on a separate platform. And as data privacy has evolved and it's increasing in the environment now, even they are working on a separate platform. There is no ownership, or there is no collaboration in between the teams, which is growing challenge in the environment for preparing the adversity within the organization. So what I foresee, or what I foresee as a challenge is on the collaboration that is missing within the organization, acknowledging the risks together to foster the solutions, and to ensure how proactively and they can encounter crisis if it's arise in an environment. So recognizing it's not easy that if the ransomware is going to attack any company or any organization, it doesn't fall on business continuity or information security or data privacy only. There is always interdependency on with respect to the people, process, and the technology. So we'll have to look at all the angles and ensure our reliability that we have on all these factors are properly addressed, and we centralize the efforts and prioritize addressing the risks. So that's my take, Bala.
Thank you, Kavita ma'am. Alvi sir.
So even today, if organizations have they understood the organization resilience to the extent that it has to be understood, big question mark. I mean, it's my personal opinion. So the point is, even if you roll back 2 years of the time when organization resilience was a buzzword, people get confused with the BCM itself and something bigger than BCM. That's what they know about it. But I think the real-time situation of COVID probably taught the different dimensions of organization resilience, whatever that was put into action without even knowing that is organization resilience. Certain organizations probably recognize these are the areas that they need to focus on, but still they are focusing within that BCM, IT, security, procurement, HR, all those. But what about the other areas of finance and quite a few parts of the organization where they need to be also be part of this resilience organization? So to me, from the story that Soundarya was picking up, we have been always looking at certain incidents that is coming up. We are reactive to it. I mean, reactive is always okay. See, organized resilience, what you're talking about, a progressive and a reactive. Reactive is always done, and we are very good at that. Every incident comes in, immediately we react to it. We put some controls in place, get some strategies in place. After that, some point in time, this is over. We focus on business later again. And we will come back to it when the incident happens. So that's the kind of a mindset that we have in most of the organization. How are we trying to probably take this back into leadership is a question, and it has to flow from top down. Unless at least it goes and hits the CEO or the board in the organization. The resilience, what you're planning, even after a structured understanding of organized resilience, will not get implemented at all. So at least to an extent in certain industries, certain segments of organizations, I think they have been trying to probably bring it in a structured manner to build up a kind of a framework for it, but it takes a lot of effort to do it unless at least the collaboration is some big word that has to happen, which is very, very, I would say, a tough aspect in most of the organization. Even within your IT to a BCM or to a security, a kind of a collaboration that need to come in is a long way in many organizations that we see. So the point is, it has to be a kind of a very clear understanding, the structured way of doing it. It has to flow down from the top management and a specific function that need to drive it, because resilience at all levels is something we are talking about. And the one point that probably Bala missed out, the progressive and the reactive part is there in organizations, but the proactive one that we need to always look at is something that need to be there. And all innovations are something as disruptive thinking that we are talking about today as innovation. We have seen a lot of things like that. When work from home itself, digitization, whatever that we have seen so far, which are not possible over the last 2-3 years, which we said remote training, remote audit, remote thing, everything remote, digitizing, sitting back at home. And everything is possible today. So the only thing is, in terms of the current situation, still uncertainty. We don't know. We know risk is probably the uncertainty in achieving your objectives. So we don't know what is the certainty today, the third wave or a fourth wave. So are we to get back to office, not to get back to office? So is there a proactive framework for it to do it? Okay, if this happens, this is what we need to do. So how much of percentage should be back in office? How much of percentage should be back working home? Is it clear? Not clear. So there can be a kind of a framework that sees, okay, this is new normal. So every day it is becoming some new normal. It is not a new normal at one level. Someday it goes up, someday it goes down. So it's a wave, like a wave that's happening for the new normal also. So the point is, in terms of the new normal, can you bring up a framework and the leadership aligning to that particular framework, and this is what it's going to be. And even in the new normal, how are you to have a resilience back sustaining working from home? Right now, if the power goes off, can I continue? Do I have a UPS back home to continue this webinar? Do I have an alternate system that can probably come in? All those need to be thought about. Or from an organization perspective, the other part that comes in is information. Earlier, it used to be offices, and back into offices to offices location, everything was managed by the central team. And also a concentration risk that we are looking at between offices in terms of splitting. Do you have that today? It's all home offices. And where is the concentration risk looked at? Do you have a kind of a geo mapping or something done? If I have my project team members almost in all the areas, in my own community, there are 10 people working in my project and all of them in one community, but my community failed, some power or some low-lying area flood system or whatever. So that project gets impacted. So do we have a concentration risk or a geo mapping that is done at the specific project or account level? So those are the things to be looked at. And if that is not there, what is the alternative? I mean, can I go back, the reverse BCP, getting back to office just for internet connectivity if everything fails? Is there something put in place? And what are the break fixes that can be done? All those need to be thought about. It's not just only organization. Okay, the individual connectivity that I have back home is managed by me, not by a corporate office with an arrangement with a telecom service provider. That can also probably one other area that can be thought about. And how is that the single point of failure? There are multiple single point of failures today. It is not one single point of failure. Has it been thought about? Does it go into the organization's resilience now? We don't know. So it has to be at all levels in terms of collaboration, in terms of innovation, in terms of the complete framework, inclusive of right from work from home policy, the customer waiver, the legal team getting into action, the procurement team getting into action, and what kind of a control that you need to put in place, whether it's going to be UPS or it's an inverter, whether the organization is going to provide that, or personal people are going to take it and then it's reimbursed. And when you get back to office, again, another question is the vaccines and other things. If privacy information that comes in, do I have to share, not to share? All those need to be thought of. It's not just only one perspective. It is a complete holistic thing that need to be thought about. And the entire thing has to be an organization framework, which has to be from a committee and covers all the function into place. And each and every function need to probably have a resilience as a sub-cover, something as a thought process that has to come and they cover it, check on all those what need to be done. One is the proactive way of checking it, then something progressive, as and when you don't know the risk that is involved. For that, that's something need to be built up. And also, finally, the part of it in terms of reactive. If all these fails, how do we do it and come back quite fast. There's something isn't often. And today, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, I would say the organization not even into 2.5. Most of the organizations, including IT, different sector, maybe few sector like banking and the finance and insurance, whatever, they could probably have been in a better place in terms of their working and all those and a regulation that is coming into place. But it's still a question to streamline. And now that there's uncertainty on third wave or a fourth wave, whatever, we don't know about it, things are getting relaxed also. Like the way that you see people are getting back to malls and few other places. I mean, are they still with mask on? Are they having social distancing? All those are taken lightly. Yes, we can live with corona, but not without any controls in place. So all these need to be practiced wherever we are. On personal side, personal resilience that has to come in. On office side, the office organization resilience has to come in. And once this meets ends, I think we will be in a better position. That possibly we don't know when is it. Back to you, Bala.
Okay, so we have one question from the audience. The question is, could organizational resiliency be addressed as a superlative for business continuity in such a case where growth is being the new sustenance? I'll just repeat the question. Could organizational resiliency be addressed as a superlative for business continuity in such a case where growth is being the new sustenance? Members of the panel, I leave it to you.
I didn't get the question at all very clearly.
Could
Can you repeat it
organizational
again?
resilience, yes, could organizational resiliency be addressed as a superlative for business continuity in such a case where growth is being the new sustenance?
Yeah, see, as I was mentioning, see, business continuity is just one arm and one pillar of 16 different dimensions of organization. If somebody has seen the ISO 22301, or sorry, organization 2316, I think. So that or anything on a principle and a few of those things that is going on there about 16 different functions, 16 different areas and principles or 20 different dimensions that are being talked about. BCM is just only one pillar out of it. So can you just build up a resilience from a BCM? A question is yes and a no, but the competence that is required for organizational resilience, inclusive of those, I'm talking about the information security, the privacy, the cyber security, the IT related stuff in terms of VPNs, single point of failure, whatever that you need to look at, those kind of knowledge is available, I think, and it's much beyond than the BCM. So that's what I was explaining. Actually, the question is already answered. If any more answers or any specific ones that the audience want to go over has asked for it, I would be happy to answer. Maybe anybody else want to pitch in?
So, RB, I'll just build on to what you just said. Basically, where it is about business continuity depends on how you've structured it, right? If it is a part of your recoverability and how you sustain it, it's a very, very convoluted view, basically. But if you look at it from a organization's perspective, and as we've been debating about it, it's the tone at the top. It is about how you design it. It's about how you finance it. It's about how you do your procurement. How do you do your manufacturing? How do you do your sales? Supply chains are impacted. So, for let's take an example of like Toyota kind of stuff. If they keep manufacturing during COVID times, they'll have a pile lying there basically as a useless product because nobody is taking cars. So I'm just using an example, but it is very, very relevant of how an organization looks at its peaks and lows and modulates to that extent and be agile to that changing environment and take care of it, looking at growth any which way. But growth and profitability have to be looked into together. Otherwise, growth can be on a very convoluted one side of the story, but what happens to your profitability? You suddenly run out of business. So it is about all the factors that have to be considered. So hopefully I've answered the question.
Yes. So anyone else wants to take? Dr. Ram, Kavita, or Soundarya?
No, I think both of them have.
Yeah, I'm good. It's going to be a repeat otherwise. Thanks.
Okay. So
Just one point I would like to add here is when you talk about business continuity, it's always planning for something at a minimum level just to keep the operations on, just to see that the critical things are delivered. But organized resilience is not just only that. It's the entire organization that we're talking about. Anything happens, you have a hit, you just come back immediately and run the business as a whole. It's not just the minimum operation that we're talking about. That's the subtle difference that you need to understand.
Yes, just to add on, just when we are saying superlative business continuity, as Harvey and Sanjay saying, it's not business. The entire organization is dependent on the business continuity. That's why we were talking about the collaboration and the ownership where it lies. It has to be a combined effort, and if you're going to plan together and work together, I think it's a team approach and never an individual business continuity or information security. Right.
Thank you, panelists. With such a diverse experience on the panel, now I bring back to what we have learned from the pandemic. We have seen two major variants and a lot of minor variants. We have had the oxygen shortage, we have had revenge tourism, and yet we see a lot of vaccine hesitancy in people. Now, what in your view should enterprises or corporates do to continue the business, and how? Now, what issues would we face when considering the business operations when related to employee health, safety, critical business operations, and data protection? What is your take on this? Can we start with Kavita, ma'am?
Sure, thanks, Bala. So when we're talking about a business, it composes of all the three. It's not restricted to only people or the process or the technology. It again is a combined effort. And during the COVID specifically, if you see, we resources are continuing to be productive and continuing to be resilient in nature. But what the organization have to be really focusing on, which most of them are doing, or if anyone is missing, is to concentrate on the mental illness of the employees, which is due to the stress levels, and as we all of us know, if we take it as a personal level, going to office definitely gives a positive vibes for some of them. Meeting several people who really tend to have good good sense in meeting people in person and having interactive sessions. And some people are composed, and it's nothing is going to disturb working in a solo mode. But we shouldn't, or the organization shouldn't be on assumptions and fail to understand the health factors of the employees. You have to stay in touch. There should be a team definitely who is working closely or who are interacting with the employees on an ongoing basis, and ensure the health and safety of the employees are taken care. And there is also another risk factor that I would definitely add on, which may or may not be agreed by the teams here. Most of the resources are failing to get a recognition, or they are not able to demonstrate their efforts while working in a remote working remotely, for the reason they are some of them or most of them are able to do their BAU activities, but how much are they innovative? How much are they coming up with their own approaches, their own ideas, and employees in getting involved in building solutions? That's a very big question mark, if you ask me, because they're all into their personal challenges and their health related issues, and working on their day-to-day activities. There are a lot of people who are waiting or disturbed with their personal and official both challenges, and the stress levels are increasing. And if you see in the market or the media currently, there is a survey, especially with the psychiatrists, 1.46% increased compared to the normalcy, where the number of cases of the psychiatrist. So the organization have to definitely take a space to spend time and to increase the level of connects that they have with their employees. Even before, we used to have definitely the weekly connects or the monthly connects with the management, discussing about our day-to-day activities, about the deliveries of our functions. But there should be a time taken to this discussion on at a strategic level or at a personal level, inquiring about their whereabouts and how is their health. The health factors have to be playing a key role, is what I would add here, and I would definitely like to listen from other panelists.
Thank you, Kavita, ma'am. Sanjay sir, do you want to take this question with you?
I totally agree to what Kavita is talking about. Your biggest asset is the people kind of stuff, and I did allude to in the start basically about patience and humility has to be there, right? Because what they are contributing and adding to is a very big factor to a large extent. The other learning, I would just say that, and as Swadhanara mentioned, I'll use the word EOC, doctor. So doc, basically discipline, focus on operations and communication, right? So DOC, right? Disciplined approach, operation focus, and communication will be very, very learned. That we have learned from this whole situation. GDPR still exists. CIA is still there as far as data confidentiality is concerned. One of the things that things that we were using or leveraging across different organizations and advising them is a NIM standard called National Incident Management System. It talks about a whole holistic way of your preparedness, your communication and information management, your resource management, your command and overall management and ongoing management and maintenance, right? The 5 ambits of the NIMS basically. It comes in and resource management is very, very important there as well, including the command and control, also very, very important. As Ram mentioned, cyber is increasing and will be there because there'll be a lot of disparate people kind of sort of looking for quick money, right? So there will be attacks on the infrastructure for specifically healthcare organizations and others because that's big data and can have easily kind of stuff. Media has to play a collaborative role. Right now, media is like, I don't want to name any channel per se, but the way the media played onto this and created so much of a scare as such could have been much more subdued. And as I said, humility and patience are very, very important. Give right information, right? So media has to play a very critical role, which has not been played as well. And managing big data can be done from home. That's again, I would say, right? It was a misnomer till a couple of years ago, but it is possible, right? With data. Over to you, Bala.
Thank you, Sanjay sir. RV sir, your take, please.
Can't hear you.
I would probably bring a different perspective. Is it audible now or no?
Yes, it's audible now.
Okay. So the point I would like to bring in is right from the days when probably I know BCM at that point, and even the information security during a strategy that we need to make it was not focused to that extent. We just say, okay, it's an interim basis. I mean, forget about all those security related, privacy related aspects. Let's go with the strategy. This is now to take care of business and then come back to normal. So later, if you know, the 27001 came up with saying that information security during business continuity, all those that was focused on. Now you know why that is required in planning your business continuity strategy. So while you're planning your strategies in any way, whatever, in the present COVID times, of course, I always keep saying it is not just business continuity, it is beyond that and the overall crisis management that is handled over. But the point of focus in terms of managing the privacy part, the data that is being handled. Today, we have a process in place that for each and every data that need to be collected or managed by the data owner, data content, whatever that you have in terms of process, that goes back to the relevant team, get an approval, then it goes back. So even today, if for a return to office, somebody coming in, what is the process? Which other team need to probably get involved? To that extent, the kind of process and the strategy that comes into the BCM today, and that has to probably be focused on because the kind of new normal you're talking about working from home only and the data that is required for you to probably come in, it's going to be dynamic. It's not just one particular thing. Okay, today I'm working from home. Today I'm working from home. It's just working. Tomorrow I'll be in office. Tomorrow I'll be working from anywhere. So all these data need to be properly captured. How will we capture it? How will we keep it? Who is going to be the data controller? Who is going to be the data custodian? Who is going to process that? How many teams are getting involved? And how do we actually manage that entire data part of it is very much important within the continuity planning also. And apart from that, a common collaborative thing from a cyber security perspective is also one important area, which is again maturity level. Most of the organizations, again, who leads it is a question. I say there is a committee that need to be formed up. and of which the contribution from IT, corporate security, and the BCM team need to be there at the first level, and whoever is contributing need to be part of it to ensure the part of security related aspect in the continuity strategies and whatever that we would have. So that's a dimension I think that is emerging out, and that's going to be the way forward, which we need to focus on. So it means the BCM person need not have to know only the BCM, but they need to even know further beyond that in terms of information security, the privacy, the data handling, and all those are another new things apart from the digital thing. Anything that comes in today becomes digitized. So even I take a tool that I manage with a BCM, how far does it go, and which of the data that is managed within that, and how far I'm keeping it secure is also one of the areas that need to be looked at. So as a BCM professional, I need to know what is digitization, what is the data that's happening, which are those that I'm handling. So one quick point is all those BCM professionals need to probably understand digital, learn digital, and find out what are the areas way forward, even when BCM is completely digitized. So that's the way forward, I see.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Ram?
Yeah, let me talk about the challenges when we work remotely from both individual perspective for employees and organization perspective. At the individual level, we all pretty well know the lines between office work and personal time is blurred. Initially, what we were excited about work from home or work at home became live at work, right? And the pressure to be available online all the time, it's very high. And employee screen time is more. Normally, we work 9 hours plus 2 hours commute. Now it's there's no break time. We all pretty well know how it is panning out. It is going to affect the stress levels, right, for employees. And only those employees. Other aspect is the ability to communicate, articulate clearly. This comes out in a remote working environment. Only those employees with superior communication skills will thrive. Those with average communication skills or people who are by nature introverts and who hesitate to speak up, they have severe problems in making themselves heard, making themselves clearly communicating, and this is going to be an issue for themselves and for their team, right? And the remote onboarding of new hires, it's what is the norm the last 1.5 years. It's extremely difficult in a remote environment to do the interview and to judge a person's their capabilities, their attitude. Everything is very risky that way. You do a few video calls and then you onboard them, and then we don't know what sort of contribution or attitude they bring along. That's going to be an issue. Then people working in an isolated way from team members, this is going to affect the team spirit dynamics, right? So I actually feel sorry for the freshers who don't get to experience what it is like to work in an office environment or a formal setting. Certain aspects like your personality, your attitude, your enthusiasm, these cannot be replicated in a remote work environment. I think people are going to miss all of this. And again, working isolation in isolation for long is going to affect the mental, wellness. I think Kavita already touched upon this. So we are, after all, social animals. We love to, even our chai breaks and lunch breaks, everything. Where everything is between me and my laptop, and that's not really going to help me as an employee. And the way we work is again how it is evaluated, especially your feedback mechanism, how it is going to be provided will change. Work monitoring will eventually, it will impact in your performance appraisal when you work remotely. All these things will be different, and only we'll have to wait and see how it is going to whether adversely affect or whether it is going to be helpful. And 360-degree feedback and all is going to take a relook. And already because of the stress levels and the working conditions, the attrition has hit the roof in the Indian market, in the Indian job sector. And there are companies which are not willing to take up, or rather they are constrained not to take up additional work, additional contracts, just because they are not able to ramp up the staff strength, they're not able to hire people with hot skills like digital skills. Already there is a shortage of trained professionals or experienced professionals in this area. And when companies insist on the traditional way of engaging employees in a remote environment, when the market is booming, that's going to be a problem. And some companies are insisting on coming to physically to the office. So that again has an impact, right? So all these things are issue. And other thing is the Zoom fatigue. The number of calls we have, we just keep hopping from call to call throughout the day. And unfortunately, emails are not serving the purpose. Everything people want to schedule meetings. And this is actually leaving very little time for us to think through, strategize, and do the actual original work on ground. That is going to be a problem. And there are companies very maturely they are handling. They're saying Fridays are meant to be no meeting days, so people can strategize. They can brainstorm, think through, and do something substantial. So these are all from the individual perspective. As far as the organization is concerned, its ability to thwart or handle cyber attacks targeting remote workers. In a remote environment, we have seen what sort of issues come up both from their technology capabilities, process maturity, and staff awareness. All these aspects will come into play. The other thing is the ability to respond and mitigate very quickly, right? The incidents, security incidents impacting the IT infrastructure, including cloud, right? Agility is a key here. And the ability to resolve technical issues, both for IT infra, on-prem, cloud, and as well as for staff equipment. Again, that is a big challenge. For instance, I had an issue with my laptop's battery. It took 3 weeks for them to respond. It was a very large OEM. Okay. So that's the state of affairs today. Luckily, I didn't have any downtime except that I didn't have a backup for my laptop. Just it is powered on, it will work. Moment any power cut happens, before the generator kicks in, this will be down, right? And DR capabilities during a disruption or a crisis while working remotely. The entire workforce is working remotely. And capability of your extended enterprise, like your vendors, suppliers, your service providers, whether they would be able to provide the same level of service before the pandemic. That's an issue. And what about the quality of service delivery to your customers while we remotely? And ability to meet audits, compliance requirements from clients or regulators through remote audits, remote maturity, resilience programs, capabilities. This is going to be a big challenge. We're all adapting. Auditors are also adapting. We're also adapting. So there's some sort of meeting ground where we agree upon what is standard or acceptable ways of demonstrating maturity. And of course, the digital transformation initiatives, either launching a new technology or new projects, and or continuing with existing projects. This capability is again going to be a spot of bother. And as I said earlier, the incident response testing, disaster recovery testing during COVID, particularly the remote testing capability simulating a real-time scenario is a question mark. And coming to access management, we want to have an identity-centric access management for remote workers. That is again an issue. And what about security, threat intelligence to monitor and thwart new age cybersecurity threats evolving in the COVID era? Today, as we speak, ransomware is a big industry, a big ecosystem, and many companies routinely, whatever be the big brand name they are, it doesn't matter. Hackers don't discriminate, and they somehow find ways to impact all sorts of companies. How are we going to manage? And new technology adoption, like, or new security models like zero trust, all of this is going to be a problem. So the challenge here is the IT, cybersecurity business leaders should inspire confidence for the management, right? Top management and the board to believe in the investment that they are making is in the right way, right avenues. And what about training for staff, and all these things will come into play when you actually try to build our capabilities or enhance our capabilities, and also our security posture. Thank you.
So one thing that add to the stress of employees is also not only work from home but also work for home. So I somehow feel that is also a different perspective. Now I will just pass on. I just pass on the baton to Soundarya ma'am for her views.
Yeah, sure. I think while answering to one of the questions that has just come up, I'll add on to the last segment of this thread, Bala, because I think everybody's added, a lot of great points. So let me not repeat them, but probably, flow the conversation into the question that has been asked as well. So I think keeping in mind all the, topics and concepts that we spoke, right? The role of a manager, the role of a people manager, let me put it that way, because the question is more on succession planning. So I'll cover that from a people manager role perspective. It's definitely a very tough role to play because, while you are in office, it's very easy and it's very quantitative for you to recognize, understand the quantum of work delivered, and at the same time look at how each of your team members are playing a role, right? It's very visible. It's physically visible. But in a remote way, like Ram also quoted, that life has taken a 360-degree, turn in the way the remote working has become. And especially freshers who do not really have seen and understand the way corporate culture works, physically, they've not witnessed any of those. It becomes very difficult to manage, the people manager role. So I think what I have seen, and I have witnessed this in some organizations, or I've heard about it in some organizations, is that now the role of a HR business partner and a people manager role becomes extensive. Right, it's not just about doing a performance review, a half yearly or a annual performance review. While this was talked about long back, that feedback should be given more frequently than wait for the end of the year to talk about feedback, or even for that matter, relating to the topic of today's session, right? Even on the security posture for the organization, all of these are some things that should be linked together and had more frequently with your team members, right? You have to connect, you have to understand, you have to put yourself in the shoe of the employee in terms of what they go through, and for which trust really is one of the largest emotional factor that comes into picture, right? So with a lot of these things, one of the ways that I have seen, some of good practice in people manager roles that some great leaders have done is have a more clear, candid, and frequent discussions, which will give you more perspective about how your team is developing. Are they aware of the policies? Are they going through simple things, right? Are they going through emails? Are they going through group communications? Group communications actually deliver a lot of great message, and sometimes a lot of people just put that or move that into trash, or move that into red junk box, or there's an auto mail that gets moved, or a new rule that's created that all such mails just go to that. So starting with all of those points, these are very small, minute nuances that people manager as a role should keep in mind, so that they have a better understanding of their team in terms of identifying successful roles for those individuals, to see how they can get their teams up the ladder to newer aspirational roles, etc. And let them know, by example, that if you want to volunteer and be a reviewer or a mentor, do something like a mentoring that can bring them to the pace of what they want to be, or their aspirations that they would like to have. I'm just linking this back to the virtual world that we are all living in today. While I have remote teams that report to me, not just in India but outside India as well, a couple of things that I personally keep in mind is have a regular chat, have a Friday conversation with them. Don't just keep it just to work, and bring in the mix of understanding personal nuances. Somebody is going through a trouble and not able to come for a meeting. Show a bit of humanity in that aspect. Whether somebody wants to go for a vaccination, somebody wants to take their family for a vaccination, etc. Be considerate about that, and don't look at the time interval between the off period and coming back to work and logging in back to work, etc. I think being human, showing empathy to the situation, and playing a real people manager's role is very important for you to create a good successor path for yourself, right? So these are some of my takeaways, and I've implemented some of these with my reportees in the recent times, which definitely helps a lot, right? So you get to understand their personal front, you get to understand their professional front, and also look at what is it that they want to achieve as part of the aspirational requirements as well. These
Yeah, and I'll
are
just
some points that I can relate to, Bala.
Thank you, Soundria.
and I'll just
Sanjay,
add
should
to
you have
what
something
Sandhya,
to add?
Bala, if I can take a minute, is
Yes,
that
sir.
there are two factors Sandhya did mention about those, and I'll call it the PH factor, which is which is basically your patience and humility, right? The PH, right, factor to a large extent. So you have to have patience with people, give them the free time, give them the trust, be human, and as such. The other factor is skills, right? I think so. The skills part is not being covered because you have to understand what are the capability and competency and skills that are required for getting the work done. If somebody which has a basic skill doesn't have and is down and not, or have personal time, taken some personal time off, how do you get the work done within the desired outcome, right? Or time. So it is important that you build up that team as cross-pollination of ideas and discussions, and then make sure that they back each other up, basically, when the time comes, basically. And I'm speaking only from being an operations manager myself. I was with GST operations head for some time in the recent parts in Mumbai. And believe me, if GST somebody is asking for data, you can't wait or tell them that my guy is down, right? The client will just rip you off, right? So I'm just speaking from that experience. Ultimately, that the income tax officer or the sales tax officer or any of the guys will not listen to the time to a large extent. So that's something I'm saying.
Yeah. Bala, one point that I missed and I just recollected, creating a successor or a succession planning, you as an individual or you as an individual people manager are not just responsible for your own team. With organizations looking at, different or newer methods to do the 360 review that happens, because we are extensively working in a collaborative world today, right? You also become an influencer for somebody else's successful career as well. So I think that aspect also is very important for people to keep in mind, that when you give a feedback to a co-worker who's worked with you on a particular project or a requirement, let's take COVID or this pandemic itself in consideration, right? So I can't imagine that there was any team that was left out across the organization which did not work on COVID, right? Every group came together, every team, be it finance, legal, audit, your transport, facility, security, everybody, I think name it, everybody was there to work and support. Somebody gave an analyst expert SME requirements, while somebody gave legal expertise, while somebody came with different other requirements, finance per se, or even a facility management, etc., right? So you, by and large, being that central group which is coordinating and collaborating with so many people across the organization, you become one of the influencers for them having a successful succession planning for themselves as well. I'm sure a lot of leaders are looking at not just taking feedback from their immediate work group, which let's say, for example, if it's operations, they just don't take viewpoint from an operations perspective. But if you worked with a various levels of group, they will go ahead and pick those people as well to give a feedback about oneself, right? So keeping that in mind, looking at how one can influence good aspects and constructive feedback for the rest of them. Again, all of this has to be done virtually, which is what I'm coming back to the question. I think the question was more aligned to how can these things be managed in such a virtual world when you actually don't see each other and you don't understand the emotional part of how somebody's skills or somebody's capabilities are recognized. So I think a lot of systemic ways are also have been developed. A lot of technology specific products have been created to look at, especially the productivity tracker is something that I've heard in the market these days, wherein people are very obsessed about looking at what's the screen time for a particular employee. So I think there are ways. So there are a lot of ways. I think each organization, based on their capacity, risk appetite, etc., I think they build their specific digital requirements to go ahead and evaluate the requirements for a success, for a very fair and good successful succession planning.
Thank you, Soundarya ma'am. Now we have a question. Is there in the chat? And since Soundarya, you have mentioned succession planning, I'm directing this question to you. The question goes like this: succession planning has become difficult in the COVID-19 scenario, considering the recovery time and dangers during recovery time. Considering the recovery time, the dangers also have to be factored in. Any new learnings on this front?
So, Bala, sorry if I was not clearly communicating that. So I thought I was actually addressing that question as part of the requirement. So I got the conversation into that question.
Yes, correct. Thank you. Any of the other panelists, do you want to add anything to whatever Soundarya has said?
I added to it already, so.
I'm good.
Thank you. Okay. So then let me move on to the next question. And this is something that Ram sir has already started or kickstarted the conversation with. The IDC has recently published a Future of Work series, which talks about hybrid workspace becoming the norm. Yet we see a lot of organizations or corporates trying to call people to office and not getting a lot of success in that. What in your views would be the impact of zero trust, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, blockchain, and 5G on the way how business continuity, information security, and data privacy is going to work? So I will start with Dr. Ram.
Sure. So all these emerging technologies, the basis is one critical aspect is cybersecurity, right? Whether it is cloud computing or artificial intelligence or robotics, process automation. For everything we need, the basis is cloud security, cybersecurity. Let's start with cloud adoption. As I said in the initial phase of this session, cloud adoption has zoomed like anything thanks to the pandemic. And I just see a survey which says that the market is more than $100 billion in 2021, right? In 2019, it was around $80 billion. Now it has zoomed, and this trend is going to only go up as we go along down the line in a few years' time. You'll see more adoption of cloud, and lot many new players have come. AWS is number one, then followed by Microsoft and other players. And cloud is a way because of all its benefit it offers. Again, AI has been leveraged in a big way, and not only in IT industry, even for other sectors like healthcare, right, pharma, and other industries. So all these emerging technologies will continue to evolve, and It will only add to the complexity from both organizational resilience and cybersecurity. We'll have to see new technologies like AI and RPA, whether it is going to impact the employability of candidates, whether they would need such a huge workforce to be employed. They're going to automate. That's something we'll have to wait and see what kind of impact it will have on the workforce and the society at large. And already we spoke about future of work, how it is shifting because of all these technologies. And earlier last year, sometime in April, just where we were getting into the pandemic, I remember Barclays Bank CEO was talking about one uh, uh, phenomenon. He said putting 7,000 people in a building may be a thing of the past. So thanks to all these digital technologies, you don't need such a large workforce sitting in one building. Today, companies are talking either of completely going remote or a hybrid work culture. And the Indian scenario already TCS and Infosec, Wipro, everyone is talking about hybrid work model, and that is the way to go. And it is going to impact commercial real estate, and also it's going to, small tier two cities. Offices are going to be set up to handle employee issues, equipment issues, and stuff. They want to go closer to their employees. And we know all this, digital technologies are actually having a huge impact in the way the workforce is being hired and retained. Now the situation has become so bad, or it has come to such a pass. The employees are keeping the organizations under ransom. They are saying, if you don't give me work from home, I'm not going to stay with you. Or you try to hire somebody with digital skills. Very first thing is, should I come to office as and when the pandemic is gone? If you say yes, then he's not interested, he or she, because they are so used to work from their comfort of their hometown, a village or a town, whatever it may be. And somebody sitting in interior Uttar Pradesh or interior Northeast is not willing to come back to Mumbai or Bangalore or any of the major cities and again uproot themselves and set up their home and get into the usual ways of working, the commute times, even dressing up they don't want to do. It's become that bad. All thanks to digital technologies, all this is possible. The future of work, and the only base for it is security as well as resilience. Thank you. Over to you, Bala.
Thank you, sir. RV, sir?
So I think when we initially started off with the BCM implementation itself, and in fact, from that perspective, people always understood the IT related stuff, the DR part of it, more than the BCP stuff, and what is different between BCDR and all those that are covered. So now that the digital part is coming up back and almost everything getting digitized, and we talk about the technology part more, I think DR need to be focused much more than the part of the process of BCP, what it is. It's going to be a kind of more of DR heavy and whatnot in terms of single point of failure that need to be addressed. And DR has to be a very clear area to support the BC, where earlier it used to be probably kind of, I would rather say DR was subset of BC is something that I heard, but now it might become topsy-turvy in terms of DR becoming the overarching thing and BC just supports along with it is something I would rather see it. And given the AI and all those that we are talking about, even BC in the recent BCI virtual conference also I was addressing how to digitize a BCM itself, because they've been practicing BCM over the last 10, 15 years. And you have certain bit of a data, and can those data be used basically for digitizing BCM itself in terms of just 5 or 10 minutes of time to just create a plan, which I mean a pattern is available for you, a certain set of projects. And if you can probably take from my own perspective of IT, when you have say 14,000, 15,000 projects over the last 10 years, you have a certain set of plans of RTOs, this kind of pattern, this kind of category of project, you have this set of RTO, RPOs. So machine can learn with that information and throw you up a plan. This is what is the plan for you, and then you can probably finally see that and approve it, and then modify slightly. Just 10 minutes of a time you spend with all the data that comes from different system of the organization, throws up a plan, and the review happens and the plan comes in. Same way, in terms of testing, rehearsing, everything can be computer based. It can run you through like a computer based training or something. It guides you saying that this is what is available in your plan with a voiceover. This is what is your primary location. This is our secondary location, and this is what is your RPO, which already comes on screen, which part of it, which we have done pattern cognizance already. But the part is how well it's being used in terms of managing it. So your structured walkthrough. Nowadays, we look at it, work area relocation is going to be very difficult because back home, what else you would test? You can check the controls and all those in place. But how would you actually take this back in terms of a simulation that you can create on a screen that can be managed and all those could be done. So typically, how well you can leverage on the existing digitization, to what extent you can automate and bring up that artificial intelligence or a machine learning or something where predominant work that is done by human to a bot, like a contractual obligation that comes in, pick up that, and the same thing comes in, it can flow into your BC plan. And this is what the BC thing about all those will be a change that I'm looking at down the line from now to next 5 years. That's the reason I always mention the BCM team need to probably develop their digital skills in terms of how this can be customized, digitized the way forward, and all those. So technology is going to be ruling the entire BCM going forward, inclusive of communication, where you have the mass notification that comes in, integrate that also into your tool and automated thing that you would have, and everything becomes automated. Even a testing on a call tree, it says this particular month you have a call tree, you set up, have a people on a day, it gets triggered, it sends out, it comes back with a gap and the failure, then note it, what is the analysis that is done, then come back and close it. So everything is going to be like that. Is something I see from now to the next 5 years when you look at all those visualizing AI or ML or whatever that we're talking about. So that's it. Back to you, Bal.
Thank you, Arvind sir. Sanjay sir, your take on the view.
So I have a little different perspective on this, coming from Lotus Notes to SharePoint to OneDrive, right? And I'll use that. And it was like earlier magnetic tapes and remote disks where data was kept. Now data is always on, right? And so I go back to what Ram was talking about, right? The data is always on, and it builds a lot of risk to a large extent as professionals for data privacy to maintain the standard of the data, and the person who needs it takes it from there. And that will be our issue going forward, because it's always on. It is not nowhere remote now, right? And that would lead us to a lot of artificial intelligence to evaluate whether we do biometric or other stuff to get people the access, because people can be impersonated. Digitization is in a big way, and that's the reason there will be a lot of evolution in the next couple of months on how data will be linked to person or whoever owns it. And that would create a lot of probabilities and combinations to a large extent as professionals. And building to what RV just said about the capabilities of the BCM professionals would definitely be tested. It is very, very important you understand computers and the state of the art. Otherwise, you are history, you are dinosaurs. Believe me, if you can't do business analysis, to type of business, to type of environment, and to type of client, and the vertical that you're supporting will become very different. People will ask information on a drop of a hat, and that is exactly why does it take so long to get a PIA or a right? Basically, you say I need to fill up a template. Why does it take 2 days to fill up a template? The template should be filled up. So those kind of things will come into play, and time will be tested, and faster the better. So I'll just rest my case, but I just give you 2 dimensions of it. One is data, and the other is the skills. Yeah.
Kavita ma'am, over to you.
Kavita.
Kavita, ma'am, over to you.
Yes, thanks, Bala. In today's threat landscape, if you see, the basic risk lies in understanding the risk, especially in data that they are maintaining across the organizations and how the customers are dealing with it. If you see, the data sensitivity is highly confidential or highly contextual when we are comparing to the level of data that they are maintaining in their, environment. If you see, from even recently or 2 days back, Amazon was affected with 887 or $888 million because of the usage of the data. The way we are going to use the data, how we are going to, protect the data, how we are going to design, how we are going to be making it evitable or accessible to others, playing a very key role because the data privacy is not disappearing due to pandemic. However, as all of us know, ICO is one of the international council which has given a deviation from the regulations that has been. There are a lot of regulations, be it GDPR or CCPA or BIPRA. There are different regulations that came into the context, and it has taken a very big transformation as the technology, as I said, as the digital transformation or AI ops or machine learning, whatever is coming into the market and developing, together comes the data risk or the data protection, what we are, with the data that we are working on. The data ethics is an obligation that comes with the, contracts with that we are signing off with the customers, and how, how much data or how much of their information is protected in the, the environment that they're going to store it in. So, when we are taking the privacy of data, it is very important that we don't, underestimate the risk that is prevailing in the market. However, ICO has given a deviation. If there is going to be any deviation in the regulation, it is okay until the pandemic is prevailing. But when is the pandemic going to end, and when is it going to be strengthened? That is a big challenge and a big question mark that we have. But approaching, towards protecting the data, that has become a big, a risk and a big challenge in the both organization and the customer network with the humongous data that they are maintaining. The approaches are, there are different approaches that is open, but how much data are we going to own? How much, and to give, I don't know how many of you have heard, there is a lot of requirements that is coming up in the contracts that we are signing off on unlimited liabilities, because the customers are so concerned about the protection of data whenever they're going to outsource the services, that they are afraid, is it a right environment or the right place that I'm investing, or I'm going to provide my data and my data is going to be stored. So there is an unlimited liability specifically to the confidentiality and the data privacy fact. But how much are we going to accept that? How much are we prepared? If you ask me at my personal level, I would say we are not even in the base level. We are not even in 1 or 2, because protection of data is not simple, because we might be intelligent, having a lot of tools and technologies developed in the market, but criminals or the predators are super intelligent, and they know the loopholes, where to break and how to hijack or how to hack the data. So having being in such an environment, we all, it might be a business continuity or Infosec or any or each. Why do we have to go to the teams? Even an individual, as an associate in an organization, you should know the role that you're playing. How much data are you owning? You have to be the controller of all the data that you are working on. It is not a function that has to own the data that you're working on, but as an individual, you have to own the data that you're working on. But how will the employee know how much data are they owning, and how do they take the liability? It depends. It definitely depends upon the awareness, the kind of awareness that you provide to the employees. It is, we can't expect a fresher, to say, this is the person that you have to provide the access to, and this is not the privilege that you have to do access the data. Unless you give a proper, a transition of knowledge to the employees, you cannot protect the data, and the data privacy risk will always be an open challenge. But if you see the media, current media talks, or based on the data breaches that has been happening, 83% of the data breaches happen only due to the insider threats. It's not on purpose, or on purpose, our employees are exposing the data. It is because they are unaware what data can be exposed and what data we shouldn't be projecting in the environment. the first and foremost, which I would definitely emphasize on, is you have to develop the knowledge and develop, what is the importance of the data that they're working on and how much ownership that they have to take on working on any project or any work that they are doing. Okay, so having said that, I'll leave it to the forum if they have any questions, and over to you, Bala.
Thank you, Kavita ma'am. Over to Sundari ma'am. Your views, please.
Bala, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I think I resonate to the thoughts that the forum has already shared. But I think it's important, touching upon Kavita's last point. I'll just flow from there and just mention that it's important. It's definitely important to educate more and keep your group of people aware in terms of what is it that they need to do and they shouldn't do. Right? In terms of pandemic, it's very easy. In fact, I'll just give a simple example of myself. I just want to quote this because it was a very funny incident that occurred recently. So simple. I'm sure all of us, order packages from Amazon and other, options that we have today. So an email that came to my work email, which said, your parcel has been delayed, and you have to reach out to so and so number to make sure you collect your parcel. So I sat on that email almost for 2 days and wondered, because I knew I didn't want to click that email because it's nothing to do with my official requirement. Considering that I'm a new joinee, I was not sure whether was there any goodie or a parcel that my organization is going to send to me because I've just joined them, or is it something that has linked up between my information, my PI, to my official ID. Because today, honestly, you don't know what gets linked where, right? There's so much of data flow that happens between so many e-commerce sites. So you don't really know where what information is flowing. So I was almost about to click this link and I just wondered whether should I or should I not. So I just went ahead and saw from where the email has come, from which ID the email came. So something just struck me to just go ahead and see that email sender data, and I realized that it is not my company which is actually sending this email. So I think in the it's very luring, right? So the moment that you see that there is a parcel that's coming to you, you've ordered something, and at the same time that you're expecting some parcel to land up at your place. It's so easy for somebody to just go ahead and say, okay, and adding to all of this is your busy schedule, right? You're so extremely occupied, you're on calls, you're continuously in discussions. So there's umpty number of chances that you will slip somewhere and go ahead and click that button. Very simple example, and it's important that you constantly keep telling your people that read every bit and parts of your email before you click on something, right? And luckily I did learn recently in my trainings, because as part of your joining you have to go through so many, and especially in a banking industry you have a lot of trainings that you need to go through before you actually start working. So I did realize that okay, so I think the first step that I need to do is simple. Just right click and see if I have an option to say report this as spam, right? That was a simple step that we had to do. And when I clicked, I realized that it's so good that in my busy schedule I did not just go ahead and click that link from that email. So I think constant awareness, organizations are really investing a lot in security these days, considering the exposure of PI and PII that's happening today because of all the reasons. So it's extremely important to touch upon the factor that keep sending the awareness. No harm, no loss, right? So keep sending awareness to your staff. Let them keep knowing, and let them choose to ignore to that email, but then it's important for you as an organization to keep educating your people that do the right things all the time. And that's from me, Bala.
I like your
So
statement
just to
where you
add on,
said. Sorry, Krita, just to
add on.
interrupt.
No. Just
Uh,
to add on.
Yes.
Soundari, you were super intelligent, but as per today's media, 1 in 4 click on the links, and that's where the threat and the incident arises. So just to add
No,
on.
but on a lighter note, being a risk professional, I shouldn't have taken 2 days to actually do that. Right? So it's there in the DNA now for us, at least, having, the big numbers of experience. Honestly, I just sat back and thought, why did I take 2 days to even, realize that it was a spam message and I shouldn't have clicked it? But then, yes, like you said, as per the reports, enthusiastic people just want to go about being having the excitement to see what's in it for me. They just go ahead and click the button, right? So that's where all the great disasters happen. So I think, having said that, on a lighter note, I did feel very embarrassed to myself that I took 2 days to realize that it was a spam email. So anyway,
Somebody I don't have to, because if they have been in the earlier organizations, they're done immediately. Because it's a new organization, we're skeptical about clicking.
Also, I think we would be happy if people read our mails.
Yeah.
Instead of, I think one of the panelists said we have a rule which says if the mail comes from BCM, it goes to trash directly or goes to a different inbox, which I don't touch at all.
Right. So it shouldn't go with only theoretical knowledge or only emails. You have to have this classroom sessions or some webinars, especially set up for the employees on a personal level, not at a big organization level, at least at a team level, to ensure they are educated well and they know about what to do and not to do.
The biggest challenge in a remote environment is sustaining or fostering a new security. Well, in a physical office, it's all obvious, but even then, in a physical office, work culture and security culture that prevails in second floor is not the same in the 10th floor. A lot of it is subjective, depends a lot on the team leadership, operational leaders. But it is also important management commitment and support is consistent and it is not biased. It's very objective. That also plays a role. But unfortunately, in a remote working environment, the entire thing has gone for a toss. I really don't know how this is going to, be sustained or fostered as we go along in this kind of scenario.
It's a big topic. We can go on for a day or days. Right? Fishing in how to get people hooked into this fall for it. Over to you, Bala.
Thank you. We were so hooked onto this today's panel discussion that we didn't realize that the time was running out. I just realized that we just have 6 minutes to close the session. So before we close, I'm just leaving the floor open to the participants. If they want to ask any questions, they can ask. There's a chat box. Please type out your questions in the chat box, and we will address it to the panelists. In the meanwhile, I would like to thank the panelists for having spared 2 hours of their weekend and helping us through this session. A special thanks to Kavita for having got GAVS to sponsor this for us. And there's one person who is doing the BCM role, basically the invisible role, and that's none other than Anita, who's doing the IT coordination, helping us setting up those questions, and ensuring that everything goes on without a hitch. Thank you, Anita.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much
Kavita ma'am, for getting GAVS sponsored also.
Thank you, Bala, and thank you all the panels, because it's not like planned for a month or 6 months. It's just planned by last week. Last Tuesday is when we all across the forum decided this is a good topic, and not only we are learning ourselves, we have to spread this and educate others also, so that they will be helpful across the industries. And within short notice, Sanjay, Dr. Ram and Arvi, everyone really supported in making this a success. I really thank you all for making this a success, and I believe a lot of you who joined the session, it was informative, and if there is any queries, please feel free to raise your questions, and we'll be happy to answer that.
So maybe did we miss Agni, who helped us from the back end to put in the format?
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Sorry for
Agnes are also.
I'm able to join. Yeah.
And Soundarya also definitely, sorry, I missed Soundarya name because you're not in the video, maybe just missed that. But Soundarya also, you won't believe it's not like, even Soundarya knows for a week or so. Just today morning, I had a call with Soundarya and I said, can you please, your presence is much required. It'll be really helpful if you could join. And she really didn't hesitate, that to being a weekend, to, accept our invite and join the session. Thank you so much, Soundarya, for that.
Thank you, Soundarya
Anytime,
ma'am. Sorry
happy
I
to
missed
learn
you.
and share.
Sorry I missed your name when thanking. I'm very sorry, but thank you so much.
No worries at all, please. I mean, we shouldn't be sorry about these things. It's okay.
Okay, so I do not see any questions. So I think we will wind up the session for now. And if there are any questions, please feel free to put it up in the Business Resilience Forum and we can pick it up from there also.
You
Thank you,
seem to have
panelists.
answered all the questions already, so no questions.
That's what I also wanted to conclude it as.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Everyone.
panelists. Thank you, participants.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot, everyone. Stay safe. Take care.
Bye.
Stay
Thank you.
safe. Happy Friendship Day. Enjoy your
Happy
weekend.
Friendship.
Friendship Day.
You too.
Stay safe.
Have a good
Stay
day.
safe.
Thanks.
Be
Bye.
vaccinated,
Stay safe.
stay healthy, and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye
Yeah.
bye.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
Anytime.